Republican ever to hold the office of Lieutenant Governor was our Lieutenant Governor, Casey Cagle. So thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you for being with us.
Well, thank you very much, Mayor. I did choke down just a couple of bites of food there before getting up here, so trying to clear that out. But it's great to be with all of you, and I want to say a special thank you to the mayor. He gave a great speech a moment ago, and I could only visualize him on this golf course. And he went ahead and compared Alpharetta to Atlanta, and he compared it to Austin. I just don't know why you didn't go ahead and take him on with Silicon Valley, while you were at it. I mean, it would have been a perfect time, but it really is good. Today's really a special day in that not only are we celebrating Ernst & Young, but so many great things. Being here with some of my great friends, individuals that are colleagues of mine, Brandon Beach, John Alberts, people that I work with on a daily basis, great economic developers like Hans and Al Nash and so many others. And we appreciate the great vision and leadership that exists within Alpharetta. And it's not often as Lieutenant Governor I get to be in the technology center city of the South. So it's a great honor for me to do that. The mayor introduced me and said that I was actually the first Republican Lieutenant Governor in the history of Georgia, and actually that is true. And I haven't told this story in some time, but when I first ran for Lieutenant Governor, I was running against a guy by the name of Ralph Reed, and Ralph Reed was very, very popular. He was an individual who had enormous name ID, not only within the state, but nationally, because he headed up the Christian Coalition. And this was a guy who was actually on the cover of Time magazine. And the race when we were running, actually, as you can imagine, a lot of national media was attending those events. And I showed up down in South Georgia, and I was getting ready to make a speech, and a guy walked up to me, and he said, I'm here and I want to interview you about your race for Lieutenant Governor. And I said, well, yeah, sure, I'd love to do that. Where are you from? And he said, Rolling Stones magazine. And I thought for a moment, I would take Rolling Stones over Time magazine any day of the week, So I thought my time had come, but unfortunately we didn't make it on the cover of Rolling Stones, I can tell you. But it really is exciting to be here. Thank you, Dr. Cross. Georgia Tech is a phenomenal institution and doing wonderful things for us. And I asked the mayor how long I had, and he said, you've got, 5 minutes, so I've already spent probably my 5. But, I want to kind of pause for a moment and talk about a couple of things that I think are unique. And every time I have an opportunity to visit with individuals that are entrepreneurs, that have that entrepreneurial spirit, that want to create things and see great successes, I remember back to a time when I was very young. And many of you probably may have heard my story, but I grew up very poor. And one of my friends that I went to high school with, who was, his dad was the most successful individual that I'd ever known. And when I was a kid, I want to paint this picture, and some of you in this room probably can relate to this, is they lived on the lake. He had the nicest sports car, and he had satellite TV. I can tell some of you relate to that. We're not talking about Dish. Andy, don't get mad at me back there with Comcast, but we're not talking about Dish. We're talking about a real dish, okay? But I was so amazed by the success of Dallas Gay. And I went to Dallas and I asked him, I said, Dallas, what is the real secret to your success? And I really was getting ready to take out a piece of paper and a notebook or a pen and start writing down the top 10 ways to be successful according to Dallas Gay. And Dallas did something that was very unique. He gazed up into the sky, and he came back, and he had this simple response. He said, "Buy low, sell high." That was the only thing Dallas Gay told me. But do you know what? Whether it was in real estate, whether it was in banking, or whether it was in that tuxedo store, I never made any money on the sell side. I always made my money on the buy side. And do you know what? What Dallas Gay said then is even true today. And there's never been a greater opportunity. I mean, we are seeing ourselves at a position in our history to where I believe there's going to be more billionaires created in this decade than we've ever seen in our lifetime. And people say, how can you be so optimistic? How can you see the future that bright? Sure, we've got certain things that we have to hedge against. I mean, interest rates that could stem the growth of the residential recovery. We have inflation that is out there and other aspects. But when you look at the real fundamentals, it is remarkable what is going on. And technology is really driving all of that. And I use this example, and just follow me for a moment. Home Depot, which all of us know because we see them on every corner, does about $60 billion a year in revenue worldwide. But then there's this little place called Amazon.com. We see them not on any corner. Does $50 billion a year. Now, really, the revenue aspect is interesting, but what is more interesting to me is that for the first time, Amazon overtook Home Depot as the #1 seller of gas grills. Who buys a gas grill off the internet? But you know what? I'm talking to individuals that get it. It's technology. It's the ability to take your smartphone into a bricks and mortar facility, scan the SKU card, and have the ability to download the app and have the ability to know not only what the lowest price is within a 5-mile radius, but what the lowest price is on the internet. You see, technology is a game changer, and it's changing every aspect of what we do. And the beauty is, in Georgia, we have great communities, just like Alpharetta, that are spurring on and creating this ecosystem that is unique. But you know what? Things like that don't just happen. And Zell Miller had a great story. And I'm reminded of it often because he said this. He says, if you see a turtle on a fence post, you know that turtle did not get there by itself. I think all of us can relate to that. When you think about the technology city of the South, Georgia is the capital of the South. There's no one else that really compares. And I wish that I could have taken on that Texan, and really demonstrated to him a very valuable lesson. And plus, I'd like to beat him on the golf course. But Georgia is the capital of the South, and no one else compares. Back in the 70s, early in the 70s, Birmingham and Atlanta were virtually about the same size in population. But Atlanta at that time took on the biggest investment of its day. It was a $500 million investment in a place called Atlanta Hartsfield Jackson Airport. Today, it's the busiest airport in the world. early on in Zell Miller's administration as governor, he said, I want to take this sleepy little port that we have down in Savannah, and I want to make it into a true economic engine for our state. And he had a simple vision. It was very, very simple. He said, I'm going to go out and I'm going to recruit the large big box retailers to locate their distribution facility in the Savannah region. He said, because if they locate in that community, those ships will have no other choice but to come through our port. And today, it's not only the fastest growing port in the nation, get this, not yet, but almost 10% of all the goods that are being imported to our U.S., the United States, is coming through what was a sleepy little port, but now is a dynamic port for the state of Georgia. You see, it takes vision. It takes the ability to put a plan in action. And just like with all of you, and just like with me, when I started out in business, a guy told me, he said, Casey, it takes money, it takes a market, and it takes management. That's the three legs of the stool. And this ecosystem that we're trying to create in Georgia, with all the Fortune 500 companies that we have, the research institutions like Georgia Tech that are second to none, the fact that we have these assets here, but unfortunately, to some degree, we haven't been able to leverage it fully. And if we can, and what's so exciting about being here tonight is because you are actively engaged in building that talent pool and creating the resources that are necessary to take us to the next level, a level that we could only dream about years before. But today we're right there knocking on the door of being something bigger than we could only dream about. And what excites me about not only Alpharetta, but about the future of this state is that we're going to come together and we're going to recognize that this new 21st century economy and what it's going to be made up of, that we're going to be on the cusp of that. And we're there because of many of you in this room. Here in Georgia, we actually lead the nation in apps that are created for products today. That's a good sign. When you look at what's happening at Georgia Tech and our other research institutions, we're poised for greatness, and we're poised to be ahead of the curve. But the one thing that I've identified as a real challenge for our state is that we've been great in incubating companies, and we've seen them leave our state and be recruited to other states because we don't have the venture capital presence that is necessary. Remember that three-legged stool that I talked about? It's great about management because we have some of the best talent in the world right here in our state. And the innovation that's coming out, no one really compares. But when it comes to money, unfortunately, most of the VC capital that's being generated is not being generated out of our state. It's up in Boston and out in the western areas. And we identified over 60 companies that were incubated and created right here in our state. But unfortunately, they grew on to be huge success stories, but not in Georgia, somewhere else. And that's why this year, with the help of this legislative delegation that's here tonight, we created something called Invest Georgia, which says we're going to create this new 21st century economy in Georgia. And we're going to put our money where our mouth is because we believe in innovation, we believe in our people, and we believe that we can compete in a worldwide marketplace. So we're going to put $100 million in a really a venture fund that's going to be managed by a third-party fiduciary that will bring venture capital from all over the U.S. that will locate here in Georgia with the only prerequisite is that the company stays in Georgia. We've got to complete the ecosystem and ensure that not only are we taking advantage of the startups, but that they are the future drivers of the economy in terms of employment. And I believe that that's where the future is going to be. The Amazons can show you that. And there are other companies as well. And we're going to be committed to making that happen. The thing that we celebrate today here in Alpharetta tonight is that there were those individuals that came before us that had the vision to put the cable in the ground that allowed companies to want to locate right here in this community. We've got to do the same for generations to come. That means educating our workforce in a 21st century economy. It means making sure that the capital is in place, the management, the resources, all of those things that make Georgia great continue. And so I'm very, very proud, Mayor, of you for what you've been able to do and what you've been able to accomplish and your dedication, your commitment to ensure that there is a brand around Alpharetta and that you're willing to even fight for it on the golf course, which I like, is going to be here. And it's not here just simply for our successes, because this is the way I'm going to close. Life is not about self. Life is about service and service to others. And when we commit ourselves to that act of service, that's when we truly find the greatness that this world has to offer. Now, I had the luxury of being taught that by my mom, who raised me by herself, who worked 2 jobs to make ends meet, who never took a dime of public assistance, but who instilled in me those values of hard work, perseverance, and a love for God. And I've never forgotten those values. Now, what I can tell you about my mom is that those jobs that she worked, they were not very glamorous. But glamour was not what she was interested in. It was about paving a way for a brighter future for me. It's called sacrifice. All of us here tonight have had individuals that have made that same type of sacrifice so we could be where we are today. The beauty about being an entrepreneur, sure, it's about creating things. It's about making money. It's about creating jobs. But ultimately, what it's about is the ability to make life better for others. That's what we have the chance to do. This is a city, this is a community that believes in it, and it's a state that believes in it. And I encourage you to continue in your great effort to do all that you can for others. Thank you so much, and God bless you.